My girlfriend said, "If you can't handle me, just say so," after embarrassing me in public. I said, "I can't handle you." She thought I was joking until I did something that left her speechless. The next morning she found out what I did. I, 29M, never thought I'd be writing this, but here I am, 3 days later, still processing what happened. My relationship of 2 years just imploded in the most spectacular way possible, and honestly, I'm not sure if I'm proud or horrified by what I did. It started last Friday night. We were at Jake's birthday party, one of those upscale rooftop bars downtown where everyone tries to look more successful than they actually are. I'd been looking forward to it all week because work had been brutal, and I just wanted to unwind with some friends. She'd been in one of her moods all evening. You know the type. Everything I did was wrong. Every comment I made was stupid. Every person I talked to somehow became a target for her passive-aggressive commentary. But I figured she was just stressed about her job interview the following Monday, so I tried to be understanding. The trouble started when I was talking to my college roommate about a hiking trip we were planning. Nothing flirtatious, nothing inappropriate, just two guys discussing camping gear and trail maps. But she appeared beside me with that look I'd learned to dread over the past few months. She interrupted our conversation to ask why I was ignoring her all night. I tried to explain that I wasn't ignoring her, just catching up with an old friend, but she wasn't having it. Her voice started getting louder, and I could see people beginning to stare. Then she really went for it. She told everyone within earshot that I was the type of boyfriend who prioritized everyone else over his girlfriend, how I never paid attention to her needs, and how she was tired of being treated like an afterthought. The entire conversation stopped. 20 people were now watching our personal business unfold like some reality TV drama. I felt my face burning with embarrassment. This wasn't the first time she'd done something like this, but it was definitely the most public. I gently suggested we step outside to talk privately, but she laughed. That cruel laugh she did when she wanted to make me feel small. That's when she said it. "If you can't handle me, just say so." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Everyone was watching, waiting to see how I'd respond. Part of me wanted to apologize, to smooth things over like I always did, to take the path of least resistance. But something in me snapped. I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "I can't handle you." She laughed again, thinking I was playing along with her drama. She told me I was being ridiculous and that I needed to stop being so sensitive. But I wasn't joking, and the realization slowly dawned on her face as I remained completely serious. I excused myself from the group, told Jake I was sorry his party got disrupted, and left. She followed me to the elevator, alternating between anger and confusion, asking what my problem was. I told her my problem was that I meant what I said. I genuinely couldn't handle her anymore. The elevator ride down was silent. She kept staring at me like she was seeing a stranger, and maybe she was. When we reached the lobby, I told her I was going home alone and suggested she call a friend for a ride. She demanded to know if I was breaking up with her, and I said we'd talk tomorrow when we were both calmer. But I already knew there wouldn't be a tomorrow for us. I went home and did something I'd never done before. I blocked her number. Not just for the night, not as some temporary punishment, but permanently. Then I went through every social media platform and blocked her there too. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, everything. I removed her from my Netflix account, changed my Spotify password, and deleted her contact information from everywhere I could think of. But that wasn't enough. The humiliation was still burning in my chest, and I realized I was tired of being the understanding one, the forgiving one, the one who always had to be the bigger person. So I did something that, in hindsight, was probably petty but felt absolutely necessary in the moment. I opened my laptop and started typing. I created a detailed timeline of every public embarrassment, every manipulation tactic, every instance where she'd made me feel small in front of others. I wasn't cruel about it. I didn't call her names or attack her character, but I laid out the facts with clinical precision. Then I shared it, not publicly, but with our mutual friend group. The same people who'd witnessed the scene at the party, the same people who'd seen her behavior over the past 2 years, but never said anything because they didn't want to get involved in relationship drama. I sent it to 12 people, close friends who deserved to know why I was suddenly going to be absent from group events, why I wouldn't be showing up to parties anymore if she was there. I explained that I wasn't asking anyone to take sides, but that I needed them to understand why I was removing myself from the situation entirely. The response was immediate. My phone started buzzing with messages from friends I hadn't expected to hear from. Turns out, I wasn't the only one who'd been uncomfortable with her behavior. 3 different people told me they'd been wanting to say something for months, but didn't know how to bring it up. 2 others admitted they'd stopped inviting us to smaller gatherings because they couldn't deal with the drama she inevitably created. One friend told me about a conversation she'd had with her girlfriend where they discussed how controlling and manipulative my ex could be. Another mentioned how uncomfortable she'd made people at his housewarming party 6 months ago when she'd loudly criticized the food and decorations. I realized I'd been so deep in the situation that I'd normalized behavior that everyone else could see was unacceptable. The constant criticism, the public humiliation, the way she'd twist every disagreement into a character assassination, none of that was normal or healthy. Saturday morning came and went without a word from her. I figured she was probably too proud to reach out, or maybe she was waiting for me to come crawling back like I always did. But Saturday afternoon, my phone started ringing from unknown numbers. She'd borrowed her friend's phone to call me, and when that didn't work, she'd tried calling from her sister's phone, then her mother's phone. I let them all go to voicemail. In the messages, she oscillated between anger and panic. First, she was furious that I'd blocked her and demanded I stop being childish. Then she was confused about why mutual friends were acting strange around her. Finally, she was almost pleading, asking what she'd done wrong and begging me to talk to her. By Sunday evening, she'd figured out what I'd done. Apparently, one of our friends had mentioned something about my message, and she'd managed to piece together that I'd shared our relationship issues with the group. The voicemails became increasingly frantic. She called me manipulative and accused me of trying to turn everyone against her. She said I was ruining her friendships and destroying her social life over one small argument. But here's the thing, it wasn't one small argument. It was 2 years of small arguments that had grown into something toxic and destructive. It was 2 years of walking on eggshells, of managing her moods, of sacrificing my own comfort to avoid her explosions. Update 1. Monday morning brought the most interesting development yet. I woke up to a text from Jake, the birthday party host, sent from his girlfriend's phone since I'd blocked him too after realizing he'd been enabling her behavior for months. He told me she'd shown up at his apartment Sunday night, crying and demanding to know what I'd said about her. When he tried to stay neutral, she'd accused him of being part of some conspiracy against her. She'd apparently spent an hour dissecting every friendship in our group, convinced that everyone had been talking behind her back for years. The irony wasn't lost on me. She was upset about people discussing her behavior while simultaneously proving exactly why that behavior was worth discussing. But the real revelation came Tuesday morning. My coworker, who happened to be friends with her cousin, mentioned something that made my blood run cold. Apparently, she'd been telling people for months that I was emotionally abusive, that I isolated her from her friends, and that she was thinking about leaving me because of how controlling I was. I sat in my car during lunch break, trying to process this information. While I'd been bending over backward to accommodate her moods and manage her outbursts, she'd been painting me as the villain in our story. Every instance where I'd tried to avoid public confrontation, every time I'd suggested we discuss things privately instead of in front of friends, she'd twisted it into evidence of my supposed controlling nature. The message I'd sent to our friends suddenly felt less like petty revenge and more like necessary self-defense. If I hadn't documented the pattern of behavior, if I hadn't provided context for what people had witnessed, her narrative would have stood unchallenged. Wednesday brought the final piece of the puzzle. My downstairs neighbor knocked on my door, looking uncomfortable. She told me my ex had been sitting in her car outside our building for the past 2 days, occasionally coming up to knock on my door when I wasn't home. The neighbor had seen her trying to peer into my windows and had even caught her attempting to use the fire escape to access my balcony. I called the building management and requested they add her to the list of people not allowed in the building without escort. Then I called the non-emergency police line to document the stalking behavior, not because I wanted to press charges, but because I wanted a paper trail in case things escalated. That evening, she finally managed to get a message to me through a mutual friend who hadn't received my original email. The friend called to say she was worried about her mental state and thought maybe I should consider talking to her, just once, to provide closure. I explained to the friend what had been happening: the stalking, the attempted break-in, the campaign to paint me as abusive. The friend went quiet for a long moment. then admitted she'd been getting increasingly uncomfortable with the things my ex had been saying about me. She'd called ostensibly to help her, but now she was wondering if she'd been manipulated into becoming a messenger. Update 2. Thursday marked exactly 1 week since the party incident, and I woke up to discover she'd created a fake social media account to try to contact me. The message was long and rambling, alternating between apologies and accusations. She was sorry for embarrassing me at the party, but I was wrong to humiliate her by sharing private information. She wanted to work things out, but I was being unreasonable by refusing to communicate. What struck me most was her complete inability to take responsibility without immediately shifting blame. Every apology came with a "but" that made it my fault somehow. I screenshotted the message and added it to the folder I'd started keeping, then blocked the fake account. Friday brought an unexpected visitor to my workplace. My ex's sister showed up during my lunch break, asking to speak with me in the parking lot. I almost didn't go, but curiosity got the better of me. The sister told me she was concerned about her behavior and wanted to understand what had happened. She'd heard conflicting stories and was trying to piece together the truth. I gave her a brief, factual account of the past week's events and watched her face change as she realized the extent of what had been going on. She admitted that my ex had always been dramatic, but the level of obsession she'd shown over the past week was concerning. She'd been calling family members, trying to get them to contact me on her behalf. She'd convinced their mother I was having some kind of mental breakdown and needed intervention. The sister apologized for her behavior and promised to try to get her into therapy. She asked if there was any chance of reconciliation, and I told her honestly that too much had happened for me to ever feel safe in a relationship with her again. Update 3. It's been 2 weeks now since the party, and things have finally started to settle into a new normal. The stalking stopped after her sister's visit. Apparently, the family had a serious intervention and made it clear that her behavior was unacceptable. I've heard through friends that she's been telling people I had a mental breakdown and became abusive, which is exactly what I expected. But the documentation I'd shared with our mutual friends has served its purpose. People who witnessed our relationship dynamics aren't buying her revised history. 3 different friends have reached out to apologize for not speaking up sooner about her behavior. They all said variations of the same thing. They could see I was unhappy but didn't want to interfere in our relationship. One friend admitted she'd stopped inviting us to her house because she couldn't stand the way my ex spoke to me in front of others. The most validating moment came yesterday when I ran into a couple from our friend group at the grocery store. They told me they'd been worried about me for months and were relieved to see me looking more relaxed than I had in over a year. The husband said something that stuck with me. He told me he'd watched me gradually become a smaller, quieter version of myself and was glad to see me reclaiming my space. Looking back, I don't regret what I did. Was it petty to share our relationship issues with friends? Maybe, but it was also necessary. I'd spent 2 years being gaslit into believing that her behavior was normal, that my discomfort was oversensitivity, that my desire for basic respect was unreasonable. The night of the party, when she said, "If you can't handle me, just say so," she was expecting me to back down like I always did. She was counting on my conflict avoidance to let her continue the pattern of public humiliation followed by private reconciliation. But sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is take someone at their word. She asked if I could handle her, and I gave her an honest answer. The rest was just me following through on that honesty. I've started dating again. Nothing serious, just coffee dates and casual conversations. It's amazing how different it feels to interact with people who don't see every conversation as a potential battleground. I'd forgotten what it was like to express an opinion without immediately calculating the emotional fallout. The experience taught me something important about boundaries. I'd always thought being understanding meant accepting unacceptable behavior. I'd confused patience with enabling and love with tolerance for abuse. Would I handle it the same way again? Probably not exactly. I might have tried one more private conversation before going nuclear. But I don't regret protecting myself, and I don't regret ensuring that our mutual friends had context for what they'd witnessed. Sometimes the only way to stop being someone's victim is to stop participating in the dynamic that makes victimization possible. She wanted someone who couldn't handle her because that gave her power and control. The moment I admitted I couldn't handle her and stopped trying to, that power disappeared. The last I heard, she's seeing someone new. A guy from her work who apparently loves drama and thinks her fiery personality is exciting. I genuinely hope they're happy together and that she finds whatever she was looking for in our relationship. As for me, I'm learning to appreciate boring conversations that don't lead to explosions, boring evenings that don't require emotional recovery time, boring relationships where both people treat each other with basic respect and kindness. Turns out, boring might be exactly what I needed.